My dad, his name was Melvin, James Melvin Lindsey, but everybody called him Melvin. I remember one particular time, my mom, my dad, he used to always come to the house and, come and get me and we'll go places. But I remember one time we went across the street. We just walked around the neighborhood and it was like nighttime. It was like, I guess like 6 or 7 o'clock, 7:30. And the fireflies were out. So it had to be in the summertime. And I just remember walking with him side by side, and I remember he had this glass jar in his hand. And I remember he had a lid on it, but the lid kind of had holes in them. And I didn't really know why, but I remember that. I must have been like 3 because he died when I was 3. So it had to have been 3. But I just remember us walking and catching fireflies. And I was happy. My mother, how she describes my dad, she describes him as short. That's how I get my shortness from. And had this curly hair, kind of. He had gray hair, but it was kind of curly. And a big old mustache. And, but sometimes I guess she talked kind of negative about him, because my mother kind of raised me by herself. My father was never really in the picture. And so my mother raised me a whole lot. So she would tell me the good and the bad about my father. Do I remember the day my dad died? No, I don't really remember the day. I think it was maybe that next day. Um, my mother, I remember her, she was on the phone. She was talking to my grandmother on my father's side, which was my father's mother. And I remember, I think she was doing my hair. I think she was giving me some plaits, like doing my hair. And she was like, uh-huh, okay, I understand. Okay. And I remember hearing that. Then she told me that daddy gone, baby. Daddy gone, bye-bye. And I didn't know what it meant at the time. I didn't cry or nothing. I didn't really just know. I didn't know really what happened. Let's see. How did my mom respond to the news of my dad's death? Like I said, she didn't really say anything. She just, they were on the phone. She wasn't hysterical. She wasn't crying, nothing like that. She wasn't really moping around the house because they had already broken up. They were already, over with. So, I mean, she mourned, but she wasn't just like crazy about it. My dad being absent affected me growing up greatly. I feel like I've made bad decisions when it came to men and boys because I really didn't have a father growing up and he wasn't able to teach me what to look for, in the right guy. So I kind of had to deal with wrong guys because I didn't know it was wrong at the time. I just thought all men were like this, but I didn't have anybody to sit down with me and tell me, stuff about men and relationships. My mother, she did the best she could, but she did it in a woman's point of view. I really needed that man growing up. And because I didn't have him, it affected me greatly. I didn't really have any father figures growing up. My mother, she didn't have a lot of men come around the house. My uncles are all out of town. So no, I didn't really have a father figure. It was just me and my mother. It's unfortunate because I did need that growing up, just to teach me everything about life that I needed to know. But my mother did a great job too, so I think that's pretty cool. A special message? I would tell him that even though he's not around, he's still in spirit. And every time I think of something, or I think about doing something, I would ask myself, what would my father do? Because I am my father's child. And so he was smart. He did certain things. He did certain things wrong, but he also did certain things right. He was a businessman. He had his own cab company. And so I would just kind of ask myself, what would I do if I was my father?